How I cut garden watering without killing my harvest. If your garden feels like it's one hot week away from collapse, I need to tell you something right up front. You probably do not have a watering problem. You have a system problem, because most people don't build a garden that grows food. They build a garden that grows chores. And one of the biggest chores of all is watering. Dragging hoses, standing there every evening, panicking every time the forecast says 90 degrees and no rain, watching your soil go from damp to bone dry in one afternoon, and wondering how on earth people ever grew food before sprinklers, timers, and giant water bills. I got tired of that. I didn't want a garden that only worked if I hovered over it constantly. I wanted a garden that could handle a missed day, then a missed week, then a rough stretch of heat without acting like the world was ending. So in this video, I want to show you how I cut garden watering way down without killing my harvest. Not by using one magic gadget, not by buying some expensive setup, but by changing the way I think about water in the garden altogether. Because once I understood that the goal is not just to add more water, but to help the garden hold water, protect water, and use water better, everything changed. And if you've been feeling like your garden is too thirsty, too fragile, or too dependent on you, this might be the shift that makes it finally start working with you instead of against you. The first thing I had to learn was this: watering more and growing better are not the same thing. That sounds obvious, but it took me a while to really understand it. A lot of us assume that if plants look stressed, the answer is more water. If the soil surface looks dry, more water. If the weather gets hot, more water. If something seems off, more water. But what I found is that more water often just covers up a weak system. It's like trying to solve a leaking roof by putting out more buckets. You might manage the symptoms for a while, but you haven't actually fixed the reason things keep going wrong. And in the garden, the real issue is often that the soil is exposed, the organic matter is low, the roots are too shallow, the plants are spaced in a way that creates stress, or the crop choices simply don't match the conditions. So, when I decided I wanted to cut watering, I didn't start by asking, how do I water less? I started by asking, why is this garden so thirsty in the first place? That question changed everything, because once you start looking at the garden that way, you realize water is not just about what comes out of the hose. It's about shade. It's about soil texture. It's about mulch. It's about wind. It's about root depth. It's about how much bare dirt you're exposing to the sun every day. It's about whether your soil behaves like a sponge or like a baking tray. And if your soil behaves like a baking tray, it doesn't matter how often you water, you're always going to feel behind. So, the biggest shift I made was this. I stopped thinking like a water provider and started thinking like a water protector. That became the goal. Not just getting water into the garden, but helping it stay there long enough to actually matter. And the single biggest thing that helped me do that was mulch. I know mulch is not sexy. It's not some cutting-edge trick. It's not one of those things people get dramatic about in thumbnails. But if I had to name one reason my watering dropped and my garden became easier to manage, mulch would be right at the top. Because bare soil loses water fast, faster than most people realize. When the sun hits exposed dirt day after day, and wind moves across it, and temperatures climb, the moisture in that top layer just disappears. And once that cycle gets going, you end up in this exhausting pattern, where you keep adding water to compensate for the fact that your garden is built to lose it. Mulch slows that down. It shields the soil from direct sun, it softens the impact of heat, it reduces evaporation, it buffers temperature swings, and over time, depending on what kind of mulch you're using, it can also improve the soil underneath. That matters more than people think. Because the goal isn't just to keep the top inch looking nice. The goal is to create a root zone that stays more stable, more alive, and less prone to extreme drying. When I started covering my soil more consistently, I noticed two things pretty quickly. First, the soil stayed moist longer. Not forever, not magically, but longer. Long enough that I wasn't rushing out there every time the weather got serious. And second, the plants themselves looked less stressed. Even during hot stretches, they held on better. The garden felt less dramatic, less fragile, more buffered. That's what I wanted. I wasn't trying to create perfect conditions. I was trying to create forgiving conditions. And that's a big difference. Now for me, the exact mulch matters less than the principle. Leaves, straw, wood chips in the right context, chopped plant material, grass clippings used carefully. There are different ways to do it depending on what you have and what you're growing. What matters is that you stop leaving the soil naked and then acting surprised when it dries out. Because if the ground is open to the sun and wind all day, it's going to lose water. That's just what it does. The second big thing I changed was the soil itself. This one took longer because you don't fix weak soil overnight, but I started to realize that some of my watering problem was really a soil structure problem. Healthy soil doesn't just absorb water better, it stores it better, it shares it better with roots. It behaves more like a reservoir and less like a temporary puddle. Poor soil, on the other hand, can be brutal. Sometimes water runs right off, sometimes it sinks through too fast, sometimes it crusts over, sometimes it stays wet at the surface, but never really builds good deep moisture where roots can make use of it. When I started increasing organic matter and focusing more on feeding the soil instead of just feeding plants, the whole system got better at handling water. That's the part people often skip. They want the shortcut, they want the trick that lets them water less right now. And I get that, I do, but some of the best gains come from building a soil that simply works better. Compost helped, leaf matter helped, mulch breaking down helped, roots from previous crops helped, letting biology do its job helped. Over time, the garden stopped feeling so brittle. That's the word I'd use, brittle. A brittle garden can look fine one day and then absolutely collapse under stress. A resilient garden bends more. It holds together better. It doesn't ask you to rescue it every 5 minutes. And better soil is a huge part of that. And one of the sneakiest places that happens is with shallow watering. A lot of gardens get watered in this light. Frequent way where the surface gets wet. Things look refreshed for a little while, and then by the next day it's all gone again. That pattern trains roots to stay near the surface, where they become even more vulnerable to heat and drying. So one of the shifts I made was watering more deeply and less often. Not recklessly, not to the point of stress for the plants, but enough to encourage roots to go looking for moisture lower down instead of waiting for me to sprinkle the top layer every evening. That was another lesson I had to learn. Just because the top looks dry doesn't mean the plant is in trouble, and just because leaves look a little tired in the afternoon doesn't always mean the plant needs emergency watering. Sometimes it means it's hot, sometimes it means it's adjusting, sometimes it perks right back up later. This took some discipline, because at first it can feel wrong. You see the surface dry out and you want to react, but surface dryness and root zone dryness are not always the same thing. That was another lesson I had to learn. Just because the top looks dry doesn't mean the plant is in trouble. And just because leaves look a little tired in the afternoon doesn't always mean the plant needs emergency watering. Sometimes it means it's hot. Sometimes it means it's adjusting. Sometimes it perks right back up later. Now, of course, you don't want to ignore real stress, but I had to stop treating every hot afternoon like a crisis. Because the more I overreacted, the more I kept my system dependent on shallow, constant water. And once I started going deeper and giving roots a reason to reach down, things improved. The plants got tougher, the soil held longer, and I spent less of my life with a hose in my hand. The fourth thing that made a big difference was shade, but maybe not in the way people usually think about it. I'm not saying put your whole garden in deep shade. I'm saying learn to respect the fact that intense sun plus exposed soil plus wind can create conditions where you're fighting a losing battle. Some plants don't need to bake all day to produce well. Some crops actually do better with a little protection, especially during the hottest part of the season. Some do better when they're planted where taller crops or nearby structures soften the hardest part of the day. Some benefit from being timed so their most vulnerable stage doesn't happen right in the middle of brutal heat. This is where I started thinking less like a traditional row garden planner and more like a microclimate builder. Where is the wind strongest? Where does the ground dry fastest? Which part of the yard gets cooked in the afternoon? Where can one crop help protect another? Where can a bit of strategic shade reduce stress without sacrificing productivity? Those questions matter, because if you put a thirsty crop in the hottest, driest, most exposed part of the yard and then complain that it needs too much water, the crop may not be the problem. The placement might be the problem. And when I got more thoughtful about that, I started needing less from my watering schedule because the garden itself was doing more to moderate stress. The fifth thing I changed was my crop selection. This one is huge, and I think a lot of people don't want to admit how much it matters. Some crops are just drama queens. They can be worth growing, absolutely. But if your goal is maximum food with minimum water and minimum daily attention, then crop choice is one of the most powerful levers you have. I had to become more honest with myself about this. Was I trying to make a certain crop work because it truly fit my system? Or was I trying to make it work because I liked the idea of it? Those are not always the same thing. Some crops can handle a little neglect. Some crops bounce back. Some crops root deeply and stay productive with less intervention. Others act like they need a support team and a weather consultant. And if you're trying to cut watering, the easiest win is often not a new tool. It's choosing more plants that fit the conditions you actually have. That doesn't mean never growing anything thirsty or sensitive. It just means recognizing that every plant is making demands on the system, and some are making a lot more than others. So, part of how I cut watering was simply building more of my garden around crops that didn't collapse the minute conditions got tough. That was a relief, honestly. Because once you stop trying to force high-maintenance plants to behave like low-maintenance plants, the whole garden gets calmer. The sixth thing I changed was spacing. Now this one can go both directions depending on what you're doing, but for me the key was understanding that bad spacing creates stress. If plants are too crowded, they compete harder for water and airflow becomes a problem. If plants are too sparse, you end up with more exposed soil, more evaporation, and more weed pressure. So I started paying more attention to the idea of the garden as a living cover, not just individual plants stuck in rows. How can I get enough leaf canopy to protect the ground without creating a jungle of competition? How can I fill space intelligently so the soil stays cooler and moister? How can I reduce open big patches between plants? Because every patch of exposed soil is an invitation to lose water. And once I started looking at spacing that way, I made better decisions. I interplanted more thoughtfully, I covered ground more intentionally, I became more aware of how fast a big bare gap can heat up and dry out. That didn't eliminate the need for water, but it changed the rate at which I was losing it. And that's really the game here. Most of the changes that helped me cut watering were not about eliminating water, they were about slowing loss, improving storage, and reducing stress. That's what made them powerful. Another big one for me was timing. There are certain times in a plant's life when water matters more, germination matters, early establishment matters, transplant recovery matters, fruit set can matter, but once a plant is established and the roots are down, the strategy can shift. That helped me a lot because I stopped watering every stage the same way. Instead, I started being more intentional. Newly seeded bed needs help. Fresh transplant needs support. Established plant in mulched soil with good root depth probably doesn't need the kind of panic watering I used to give everything. That change alone saved me time because I was no longer treating the entire garden like it was equally vulnerable all the time. It isn't. Some parts need more attention, some parts need almost none. And the more clearly you can tell the difference, the easier watering becomes. I also learned to water earlier and more strategically. If I watered at the wrong time, especially in heat, I felt like I was racing the sun. Watering at a better time gave the moisture a chance to settle in and actually serve the plant before the day started punishing everything again. And again, that sounds simple, but simple things matter when you're trying to reduce waste. I didn't need a revolutionary idea. I needed fewer stupid losses. That became a theme. Not more complexity, fewer stupid losses. Another thing I stopped doing was assuming every wilting leaf meant the same thing. This one caused a lot of overwatering for me early on. Because some plants will wilt temporarily in the heat of the day and then recover in the evening. If you see that and immediately blast them with water every single time, you can end up building a rhythm that has more to do with your anxiety than with what the plant actually needs. So I got better at observing. Not just reacting, but observing. What does the soil feel like below the surface? What does the plant look like in the morning? Is the stress repeated day after day, or was it just one hot afternoon? Are new leaves healthy? Are fruits setting? Is the plant actually struggling or just responding normally to heat? That kind of observation saved water because it gave me confidence. And confidence matters. A lot of bad watering comes from uncertainty. You don't trust the system, so you intervene constantly. But as the garden gets healthier and your observation gets better, you stop reacting to every little signal like it's an emergency. That's when things start feeling sustainable. Now I also want to say this. One of the most helpful mindset changes for me was accepting that the goal is not to make plants soft. It's to make them capable. There's a difference. A plant that has had to root deeply, deal with some variation, and grow in well-covered living soil often becomes more resilient than a plant that has been pampered every single day in shallow wet soil. That doesn't mean stressing plants for fun. It means not building a system that teaches them helplessness. Because a helpless garden is exhausting, and if your garden is exhausting, you won't stick with it. Or if you do stick with it, you'll resent it. And that's not what I want from this kind of life. I want a garden that supports me too. So, a lot of what helped me reduce watering was really about building strength into the system from the beginning, not just reacting once things looked bad. And honestly, once I started seeing it that way, I noticed that watering was just one part of a bigger picture. The same changes that helped me hold water also helped with weeds. They helped with soil life. They helped with temperature regulation. They helped with overall plant health. It wasn't like I solved one problem in isolation. I just started building a better garden. That's worth saying because sometimes people are looking for one trick, one product, one hack. And what actually changes things is often more boring and more powerful than that. Cover the soil. Build the soil. Choose better crops. Create less exposure. Encourage deeper roots. Pay attention to timing. Observe before reacting. It's not flashy, but it works. Now let me tell you what I didn't do. I didn't chase every watering gadget on earth. I didn't assume I could engineer my way out of weak soil and bad layout. I didn't keep throwing water at plants that were in the wrong place doing the wrong job in the wrong season. And I definitely stopped believing that if a garden needed less water, it must be because I was somehow depriving it. That was important for me to let go of. Because cutting watering is not about neglect. It's about efficiency. It's about resilience. It's about building a garden that uses the water it gets more wisely. That's a completely different thing. And once I embraced that, the garden got easier. Not perfect, not effortless, but easier. There were fewer emergencies, fewer evenings where I felt chained to the hose, fewer stretches of hot weather that made me feel like everything was about to go under. And maybe more importantly, I started trusting the garden more. That might be the biggest change of all. I trusted the mulch to do its job. I trusted the soil more. I trusted root systems more. I trusted the difference between surface dryness and true plant stress. I trusted that not every problem required immediate intervention. That trust gave me back a lot of mental space. Because gardening gets a lot more enjoyable when you stop managing every inch like it's constantly on the edge of disaster. And if I could boil all of this down into one simple idea, it would be this. The best way I cut garden watering was by building a garden that loses less water in the first place. That's the heart of it. Not heroically adding more. Not constantly rescuing things. Not living with the hose in my hand. Just creating conditions where the water that does arrive, whether from rain, irrigation, or a deep soak, has a better chance of staying in the system long enough to matter. That's what changed my harvest. Because here's the fear a lot of people have. If I cut watering, won't I just get less food? And if all you do is suddenly stop watering a thirsty, exposed, shallow-rooted garden in bad soil, then yes, you'll probably get less food. But if you cut watering by redesigning the conditions that make the garden thirsty, that's different. Then you're not just removing water, you're removing waste. And when you remove waste, you often get a better garden, not a worse one. That's what happened for me. The harvest didn't disappear. In many cases, the plants looked steadier. The whole garden felt more balanced, and I stopped paying for the same mistake over and over again with my time, energy, and water bill. That's a win. So if your garden is constantly thirsty, I'd encourage you to step back and ask a different question. Not, how often should I water? Ask, why is this garden drying out so fast? Ask, what in this system is making water hard to keep? Ask, where am I exposing soil, creating shallow roots, choosing the wrong crops, or relying on watering to cover up a deeper issue?